He kissed me as if he had just discovered some secret desire his throat tightened as his fingers moved beneath the hem of my underwear and explored the exposed flesh between my thighs. Welcome to the euphoric moments of love. Don't forget to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments section, and subscribe to stay updated with our latest stories. Wishing you enjoyable, relaxing moments. Thank you. Gather round as I share the unexpected tale of the moment. One morning in late spring, I received a letter. Not from her. From him. Lucas. His handwriting hadn't changed. Careful. Almost too neat, as if he was always trying to make sense of the mess inside him. I sat on the garden bench, surrounded by the scent of wild rosemary, and opened the envelope slowly. My hands trembled, but my heart didn't race like it used to. I was no longer afraid of what he might say. His letter was short. No blame. No excuses. Just a quiet confession. I left because I had to. What we did was wrong, but it woke something in me, something I needed to understand. I've spent this time learning who I am without the shadows. I think of her often. Of what I took from her. I still carry that weight. But I also think of you. You were lonely, not cruel. You were lost, not wicked. I forgive you. I hope one day you can forgive yourself. I folded the letter and placed it inside a book I no longer read. I didn't need his words to heal. But still, they felt like a small stone lifted from my chest. That evening, I sat with a candle and wrote a new letter, this time to myself. You are not your worst mistake. You are still capable of gentleness, of love, of beginning again. I signed it with my full name, as if reclaiming it. Then I made tea and sat by the window, watching the sky change color. My daughter and I speak sometimes now. Not about the past. Not yet. But about small things: her new job, the dog she adopted, the quiet joy she finds in rainy mornings. She still hasn't forgiven me. I see it in her eyes. But there's no more hatred there. Only distance. Cautious love. And I can live with that. Because healing is slow. Because love, once broken, doesn't return the same, but it can still return. I keep tending my garden. I teach children at the local library how to plant seeds in paper cups. They come back weeks later, wide-eyed, holding their little green sprouts. And I tell them the same thing every time. Even the smallest roots can find their way through stone. And I believe it now. Because I've seen it. In lavender that grew back after frost. In letters I thought would never come. In a daughter who, one quiet day, said, "Maybe next time I visit, we can have tea." And in myself. A woman once broken. Now learning how to live in the light again. The air grew warmer. The garden blossomed wildly, lavender reaching for the sky, roses spilling over the fence, and time softening the edges of the stone path. And she kept coming back. Not often. Not always planned. Sometimes with fresh bread. Sometimes with a story about work. Sometimes just to sit in silence on the porch. We were learning how to be around each other again, without tiptoeing, without the sharp sting of old wounds filling the space. One evening, as the sun dipped low, casting golden threads across the table, she placed a photo album in front of me. "I thought we could go through some of these," she said, almost shyly. "If you want." My breath caught as I opened the first page. There she was, age 6, tooth missing, arms covered in glitter. I laughed softly. She smiled too. We turned each page like peeling back layers of time, remembering who we were before things broke. And something within me healed a little more. At one point, she stopped at a picture of her and Lucas, taken long ago, before it all unraveled. She didn't say anything for a moment. Just looked. Then she whispered, "I loved him, you know. Maybe not forever, love. But enough that it hurt." "I know," I said gently. "And I'm sorry I took that from you." She nodded. "I know." She closed the album slowly. "I'm not sure we'll ever be the way we were," she said. "We don't have to be," I replied. "Maybe we can be something better. Something honest." She looked at me, long and soft. "I like that," she said. "Honest." We didn't need more words. That night, before she left, she stood by the doorway a little longer than usual. The moonlight cast a glow across her face, and for the first time in a long while, She looked like the child I had once held in my arms and the woman she had become. "I'm proud of you," I said. She smiled, blinking away quiet tears. "I'm learning to be proud of you too," she whispered. Then she was gone. But something had stayed behind, like the scent of lavender on skin, or the warmth of sunlight hours after it sets. A promise. Not that everything was fixed. Not that the past was forgotten. But that love, in its quietest form, had found its way back through the cracks. And now, each morning, I water the plants, make 2 cups of tea just in case she visits, and leave the porch light on. Because love never returns the same. But sometimes it still returns. Autumn brought gold and rust to the trees. I learned to enjoy the way leaves let go softly, without resistance. I began letting go too. Of guilt. Of shame. Of the weight I had carried like a second skin. And she kept coming. Sometimes once a week. Sometimes twice in a month. Each visit like a fragile thread stitching us back together. We made soup together one rainy day. She chopped vegetables while I stirred, the rhythm of it calming. There were no tears, no silence heavy with unspoken pain, just the gentle sound of boiling water and the scent of rosemary. She left that evening with a small container of leftovers and a handwritten recipe card. "It tastes like home," she said before stepping out. The next week, she brought over some flowers for my kitchen window. Yellow ones. Bright. Hopeful. "I used to hate yellow," she laughed. "Now it feels like a beginning." So I kept them there, watered and blooming. A small reminder that beginnings are rarely loud. Sometimes they grow in whispers. One day, she brought her dog, Pepper. He ran through my garden like a wild wind, scattering leaves and joy. She sat with me on the bench as we watched him chase butterflies. "I used to dream of moving far away," she admitted. "And now? Now I just want peace." I smiled. "I think that's what we're building." Slowly. We didn't talk about him anymore, Lucas. That story had folded itself into memory. Not erased, but no longer sharp. He had become a part of our past, not our present. My daughter started calling more, texting photos of sunrises, silly mistakes at work, books she thought I'd love. And one evening, she said something that stayed with me like a warm coat. "You're becoming my safe place again." I didn't reply right away. I was too full of feeling. But later that night, I lit a candle and whispered to the quiet room. "Thank you." Because I had once broken something that felt beyond repair. And yet, here we were. Not perfect. But whole in a new way. One day, maybe years from now, she'll tell her own daughter about forgiveness. About how it isn't easy. About how sometimes, the people who hurt us the most are also the ones who try the hardest to heal with us. And I hope she says, "We found our way back. Not to what we were, but to something gentler. Something real." And I'll be in the garden still, older, quieter, but full of love. Waiting always with tea. And an open door. The house grew quieter, but not empty. It was filled with the kind of silence that holds peace, not sorrow. The kind that lets memories breathe without hurting. Photos line the hallway now, me and her laughing in the kitchen, her holding Pepper in a ridiculous sweater, sunrises we watched together from the porch. These weren't pictures of perfection. They were pictures of survival. Of choosing love again and again, even when it was hard. She eventually married someone new. A quiet man with kind eyes and patient hands. I liked him instantly, not for who he was, but for how gently he loved her. "He doesn't try to fix me," she once said. "He just holds space for me to grow." And when they had a daughter, my granddaughter, I cried for a different reason. Because I got to hold a new beginning in my arms. A tiny soul who knew nothing of the past. Who only knew warmth, softness, and stories. We named her Hope. "She looks like you when you were a baby," I whispered to my daughter one day. She smiled softly. "I hope she grows up brave like you." I looked at her, startled. "Brave?" She nodded. "You could have run. You could have closed off. But you stayed. You waited. You made space for my anger. That takes strength." And in that moment, I forgave myself fully, finally. Because healing had come. Not suddenly. Not loudly. But like dawn creeping through a fogged window. In the garden, little Hope played among the lavender. Her laughter echoed like music. My daughter sat beside me, her head resting gently on my shoulder. "I think we're okay now," she whispered. I nodded. Better than okay. And we were. Not because the past was rewritten, but because we rewrote the future, with gentleness, one day at a time. And as the sun set, casting golden light across 3 generations of women who once knew pain, but chose love, I knew the story had ended. But our lives were just beginning. This time, she didn't come for boxes. She came with a warm scarf wrapped around her shoulders and a small tin of homemade cookies in her hand. "Just thought you might like these," she said. She didn't step inside at first, but she stood there on the porch, looking around, as if trying to remember how it used to feel, before it all cracked. "Smells like rosemary," she said with a faint smile. "I planted some in the back," I replied, heart beating slow but full. We sat on the porch. Not close, but not far. It was the first time in almost a year that we had sat side by side. Birdsong filled the gaps in our conversation. Neither of us rushed it. She told me about her job at the design firm. About the little dog named Pepper who chewed through 3 pairs of her shoes. About how she'd started journaling again, just to clear my head, she said, shrugging. She looked better. Softer. More at peace. "I thought I'd hate you forever," she said suddenly, eyes fixed on the garden. My chest tightened. "But I don't," she added, her voice low. "I just don't know how to love you the same way anymore." Tears filled my eyes, but I nodded. I understood. I didn't expect the old love to return. I only hoped that something new might grow in its place. "You don't have to," I whispered. "Whatever love you have, even if it's different now, it's enough." She looked at me then. Not with pity. Not with anger. But with something gentler. Something like acceptance. "I'm still healing," she said. "I know," I replied. "So am I." She stayed for dinner. We didn't talk about Lucas. We didn't need to. That chapter had closed. Instead, we talked about recipes. About the old neighbor who still waved at nothing. About how the clouds looked like feathers that evening. She laughed once. A small, sudden laugh that surprised even her. And it was the most beautiful sound I had heard in years. Before she left, she hugged me. Briefly. Gently. But it was real. "Thank you for not giving up on me," she said. "I never will," I whispered. As she drove away, I didn't cry. I stood in the doorway, wrapped in her scent and the sound of her laughter, and I smiled. Because forgiveness doesn't always come in a flood. Sometimes it comes in teaspoons. In shared meals. In quiet evenings. In cookies wrapped in napkins. And that, I've learned, is enough. The next morning, I pulled the curtains aside and saw a storm brewing outside. Rain tapped gently against the windows, and the wind moved the trees in a graceful rhythm, like dancers lost in thought. I stood there quietly, staring at a photograph my daughter had sent, a picture of the coast, the golden sands, the sea glowing in sunlight. Her smile lit up the entire image. That smile held me still, caught me like a whisper from a life I once knew before guilt had taken over my days. As the evening grew darker, something called me outside. I stepped into the rain. The air was cool and soft against my skin. Barefoot, I walked down the porch steps and let the rain fall over me. It soaked my clothes and touched my face like tears I hadn't yet cried. I stood in the yard, surrounded by silence and regret. Then I heard him behind me. His voice was low. "Why do you keep letting me in?" he asked. I turned, unable to answer. He stepped closer, not with confidence, but with ache. And in that moment, under the storm, we simply stood still. Nothing was said, but everything was felt. We didn't cross the line that night, not with actions, but with something deeper. A knowing. A surrender. From that night on, something shifted. We carried a secret soft and heavy. It followed us into quiet places. The back of his car, the stairwell, the space between 2 breaths. But it wasn't joy we found, it was escape. Each time I saw him, my heart beat faster, not from excitement, but from fear. Fear of the truth. Fear of her. My daughter. She never saw the whole picture, not at first. But one morning I saw it in her eyes. She sensed it. The way he looked at me. The way I avoided her touch. The betrayal hung in the air, like a fog neither of us could name. Later, in the quiet corridor of the house, I waited for him again. And again he came. But something had changed. He held me, yes, but his embrace felt like a goodbye wrapped in longing. "You're going to destroy me," he whispered. I didn't answer. I just leaned in. We clung to each other like drowning souls, knowing the end was near. That night, he didn't return. No knock on the door. No whisper of my name. He chose silence. And in his silence, everything was said. The next day, I watched from the kitchen as he laughed with her. My daughter's face was glowing, her voice gentle. She offered me a cup of coffee, but her eyes knew. They searched me slowly, deeply. That afternoon, we sat together at a small cafe. She smiled as she spoke about wedding plans, flowers, music, her dress. I smiled too, though my heart ached. I felt like a stranger wearing my own skin. Then she paused. Her fork rested on the table, and she looked at me with eyes full of quiet fire. "Is he sharing your bed?" she asked. The cafe noise faded. I froze. I couldn't speak. I couldn't lie. I didn't mean to, I finally whispered. Her lips trembled, but her voice did not. "Since that weekend, you felt different. Every time I spoke of him, you looked away." I looked down. "You let it all happen," she said. "And now, what's left?" Then she stood slowly. "It's a story I'll carry with me always," she said. "But you're no longer my mother." And with that, she left. I sat there long after she was gone. Back at home, the silence was unbearable. Lucas was gone. She was gone. My husband, too, had long since vanished into his own quiet grief. Weeks passed. One evening, he came to me again, not with touch, but with words. He whispered, "You led me to forget everything I once knew." "I never meant to be a mistake," I whispered back. We held each other one final time, not out of love, but out of mourning. A farewell wrapped in warmth and sorrow. He stayed until dawn, then vanished like a dream that fades too quickly. The next day, she looked at me again. Her smile was bright, but it didn't reach her heart. That was when I knew the deepest heartbreak isn't loud. It's quiet. It lives in the spaces between words. It waits in the silence between two people who once trusted each other. She later invited me to a quiet meal, just us. No phones. No Lucas. A memory of a better time. But even there, in that peaceful cafe, her questions still lingered in the air like unshed tears. And when I told her the truth, I felt her break. The wedding was called off. Lucas disappeared. Her father said nothing. He packed his things and left quietly, only weeks later. I now sleep alone in the guest room. Sometimes, I wake with my hand reaching for someone who is no longer there. I sit on the porch and wonder if he thinks of me, if he remembers the way I whispered his name, the way the rain sounded when we stood together for the first time. But maybe he's writing a new story now, with someone who offers him peace. And my daughter, she sends postcards. Few words. No warmth. I often wonder, did my longing for closeness steal away what truly mattered? Was dignity the price I paid? He was her fiancé. And I was the woman who chose longing over loyalty. The wound remains. Time doesn't heal everything. It only teaches us how to carry the weight more quietly. Not empty, but haunted. By memories. By words left unsaid. By the scent of a man who once lingered in the hallway and the echo of a daughter's laughter that now feels like a distant dream. I spend my mornings in silence. I wash dishes that no one uses. I fold blankets no one touches. Sometimes, I sit in the garden and pretend I am still part of their world. The lavender has grown wild. I let it. It reminds me of the day he said goodbye, kneeling beside me, voice soft, regret heavy in his eyes. "It's time to end this," he said. And I remember replying, "You already did." The seasons have started to shift. The air is cooler now. The sky feels wider, more honest. I have begun writing letters I will never send. One for him. One for her. One for the woman I used to be. I write things like, "I should have been stronger. I should have walked away when I felt myself falling. I should have loved her more than I feared being alone." But truth is like rain. It finds its way in, even through the smallest cracks. I wonder where she is now. If her heart still aches. If she's learning to trust again. I wonder if she ever smiles when she remembers me, or if she's buried me so deep I no longer live in her memory at all. The nights are the hardest. When the moon hangs low and shadows stretch across the bedroom wall, I feel everything more sharply. My choices. My silence. My ache. I reach for sleep, but sleep avoids me. And when I dream, I see her as a child, her hand in mine, her eyes filled with wonder. Back when I was her whole world. Now, I am just a woman she used to know. Lucas never returned. No final message. No goodbye. Just a silence so complete it felt like punishment. And maybe that's what I deserved. But even still, I mourn him, not just for what we did, but for what he reminded me of, that I was still capable of being seen. Of being touched. Of feeling alive. He once said, "You made me forget the world." But he never told me what I made him remember. I no longer try to rewrite the past. The pain has become a quiet companion. I carry it like a stone in my pocket. Small. Heavy. Always there. People in town whisper, though they do not know the whole story. They speak in half-truths, and I let them. Their judgment is softer than my own. Sometimes I see her from afar. At the grocery store. Outside the library. Her eyes pass over me like I'm a stranger. And maybe I am. A stranger who used to sing lullabies. A stranger who used to pack school lunches and braid her hair. A stranger who forgot, for one moment too long, what it meant to protect the person she loved most. There are no more chances. No more warm embraces. Only time. And time, though patient, does not forgive. Still, I wait. Not for forgiveness. Not for him. Not even for her. But for the day I will wake up and no longer feel like I am waiting for something to return. I began rising earlier, not because I had somewhere to go, but because I could no longer stay in bed with my thoughts. I started walking, slowly at first, just to the edge of the field where the wind still remembered our voices. There, I watched the wildflowers return. There, I let the silence speak kindly to me for the first time. It didn't say, "You are forgiven." It said, "You are still here." I held on to that. I started baking again, just small things. A loaf of bread. A pie I used to make when she was little. The smell filled the house with memories that didn't hurt as much anymore. There were no more postcards from her. But one day, a small envelope arrived. No return address. Inside, a folded piece of paper. A single line written in her familiar script. "I'm learning how to be okay. I hope you are too." I held the note to my chest and wept. Not from sorrow. From relief. Because she had written. Because her heart hadn't closed forever. Because maybe, just maybe, there was a door, still slightly open. I wrote a letter back. I didn't ask for her love. I didn't ask for her to come home. I simply wrote, "I carry you with me always. Even in silence, you are the part of me that never left." I didn't know if I should send it. So I left it on the windowsill, where the light could read it. I began volunteering at the local shelter, helping sort clothes, listening to women whose stories felt like songs I had once hummed but forgotten the words to. Some were starting over. Some had fallen harder than I had. But all of them had voices. And so did I. One day, I was asked to speak. Just a few words. A gathering of women, sitting in folding chairs, cups of tea cradled between fingers. I stood before them, nervous. Unsure. "I'm not proud of my story," I said quietly. "But I've stopped hiding from it." They nodded. Some cried. One woman stood up and hugged me after. She whispered, "Sometimes the ones we hurt the most are the ones we loved the hardest." I nodded. And for the first time in so long, I felt understood. That evening, I sat on my porch. The sky was soft with dusk. I held a cup of tea and let the quiet come without fear. No ghosts. No footsteps. Just the wind brushing against the trees, whispering a kind of peace I hadn't felt in years. I thought of her. I always will. But I no longer held my breath hoping for her forgiveness. Instead, I lived in a way that honored her pain. I didn't seek to undo the past, only to become someone new in its shadow. And maybe one day, she would see me there, not as the woman who failed her, but as the woman who finally learned how to stay. It was early autumn when she came back. Not to stay, not even to visit, but to collect some things she had left behind. I heard the car door close, soft and uncertain, like her footsteps on the gravel. I didn't move from the porch. I sat still, the blanket wrapped around my shoulders, my tea going cold. She walked to the door, paused, and then saw me sitting there. Our eyes met. Not for long. Just enough. She gave a small nod and opened the front door with her key. She still had it. I had never changed the locks. Somehow, I couldn't bring myself to. I didn't follow her inside. I let her have the house to herself, her memories, her space, her silence. But when she came out an hour later, her arms full of boxes, she stopped at the edge of the porch. She didn't speak right away. The air around us held the breath we had both been holding for too long. I saw your letter, she said finally. Her voice was soft, cautious. On the windowsill. I looked up, my heart suddenly too loud in my chest. She didn't wait for me to answer. I didn't open it. A pause. I didn't need to. I gave a small nod, afraid that if I spoke, I might cry. She set the boxes down on the porch, her fingers brushing her forehead in thought. I still don't understand everything, she continued, eyes drifting out toward the field. But I've stopped trying to carry all the pieces. Her voice trembled slightly. I didn't come for closure. I just came because I felt ready. And that was enough. More than enough. We didn't hug. We didn't cry. We didn't say sorry. But we stood in the same space, under the same sky, and for the first time in so long, we weren't strangers anymore. She picked up her boxes again. And just before she left, she paused. I still don't know what comes next, she said, for either of us. But I'm not angry every day anymore. And maybe that's a start. She gave a small smile, fragile but real, and walked away. I stayed on the porch long after the sound of her car faded. And I whispered into the wind, that's more than I ever hoped for. Since that day, I've taken up gardening again. I plant things that take time to grow. Things that need patience. Lavender. Rosemary. Wild roses. I write sometimes poems, letters I won't send, memories that once burned but now only flicker softly in my chest. I walk with steadier feet. I smile without shame. And every so often I get a message. A short one. A picture of a sunrise. A recipe we used to make. One simple line. Made me think of you. Not forgiveness. Not a promise. But presence. And presence is enough. Before you embark on your next adventure, remember to give a thumbs up to the video, subscribe to the channel, and activate those notifications so you won't miss the tale that awaits you next. Thank you for joining me on this journey.